Humor is not the first thing you think of when researching or discussing contemporary or modern art, but it does have a far more significant place than one might think. R. Crumb, Peter Saul, and Erwin Wurm, to name just three, cannot be completely understood without considering their ability to make us smile or laugh. Even the late Picasso paintings and prints had as much humor as they did restlessness, angst, or sexual tension in his continued quest for the extreme. Most recently, Maurizio Cattelan duct-taped a banana to a wall at Art Basel in Miami and priced it at $120,000. It sold. Then another was created and it sold. Then a third for $150,000 was offered, since the artist figured that the value had increased, and it sold. What does this tell you? Well, for one, some people have a lot of money. Secondly, humor still has great value, while timing, and in this instance, the high-end art fair location is everything. A Horse Walks Into a Bar is a survey of some of today's hard-working and dedicated artists who continue to push the boundaries of fine art toward wit and whimsy. For this exhibition, I have selected a number of artworks from over 24 artists that reflect a very broad range of humor. Some works are out and out funny, others will take time to reveal themselves, perhaps in a very dark way that may or may not resonate with everyone. In the end, it is all about what you, as the viewer, bring to the table. We all relate differently to humor as we do with any other state of mind. For example, unchecked decadence and debauchery is key to the art of Alex Kavaris. A human head as a vessel for a freshly picked flower, drink and deception that colors pleasure, headless figures happily dancing, all surrounded by intricate patterns, ornate decoration, and dangerous fun and games. Kavaris's art is suggestive of a time, perhaps the 18th century, when an abundance of wealth and power was never enough. What is most striking here are the parallels to our current day. Rules are set, laws are made, and the interpretations and applications of our Constitution are as unpredictable as a hamster race. And we ask ourselves, will we still eat sausages after we witness how they are made? James Hilger's Pokemon pun may remind some of the Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. In it, William Shatner spies a monster on the wing of a plane in flight, a gremlin, who is attempting to destroy the engine. Shatner, of course, is the only one who sees it, as it reignites his previously cured nervous breakdown. Hilger's nod to the Pokemon Go craze here, which has caused a few accidents and deaths, works quite well not only as humor, but a very biting look at the crazy video game obsessions of our times that need to be a part of something bigger, and the addictive element of gaming can literally take over one's life, especially when on the go. Brian Novotny's dual portrait series consists of pairings of individuals that sometimes have a similar sense of humor and other times not. What will first attract you to these exquisite drawings is the way in which Novotny composes his subjects, often working against the edges of the paper to create a low level of mystery and anxiety. All the white space, paired with the delicate line and shading the artist has mastered, leaves us with the hint of a party moment, a narrative that quickly fades into memory when we get lost in the details that are advanced by the facial expressions. Chris Bohr, who also takes a very direct approach to his humor, offers 3 in-your-face works that coerce reference. Underdog from 2012, which shows the basis of a sinister plot to lure the hero underdog into some dark and deadly end, has the deepest narrative. Here, one of Bohr's signature watercolor coloring book formats apply, while his approach to the darker side of what one might have previously considered to be harmless cartoon culture unravels and quickly degrades. The socio-cultural aspects, The narrative built on familiar and crisp line drawing and the unruly washes of color all add up to this unsettling, albeit humorous, vignette. Scot Hats' two colorful collages riff on science and popular culture, creating wild, dreamlike narratives. A master of color and design, Hatt brings us through waves of representation that spark thoughts of the past and haunt the present, while the bright hues of paint that delight the eye and soften the segues give the viewer even more visual stimulation. Hints of humor are everywhere. Smiles, a clown nose on a skull's face, the suggestion of a prank, while the occasional bullet hole in glass and the toothy grin of a half-skeleton add elements of human frailty that jolt the senses, then sobers the mood. Amy Johnquest utilizes vintage photographic postcards to create her fantasy works. In Clarence, the Emperor of Mars, made in 2016, we see an infant snug in a rug, flanked by hordes of Martians who seem to haunt rather than hang out. With Kersey Lightfoot, Levitator, created in 2017, we see a second older child standing and floating slightly above his throne-like chair. The dot pattern behind him, which is against a midnight field, seems to emanate from two white eyes peering through a chilling night sky, while his head sprouts what appears to be electrical energy, giving him a more powerful appearance. With both, we have something along the lines of another Lewis Carroll scenario where fantasy overshadows reality. Rachel Phillips offers two paintings that seem to be responding to each other in an endless loop. No Way and He Said What, both from 2019, which are perilously painted, fall stylistically somewhere between the avant-garde art movement Cobra that started in 1948 and Art Brut, which also began in the 1940s, types characterized by irregular forms and brazen color schemes. The exaggerated facial expressions, the interlocking shapes that conform to no preconceived notions of composition that project odd logic, and the unrestrained aspects of the paint blending and overall application adds to the fun and to some the disquieting mood of the work. David C. Terry adds to the conceptual conversation with Climate Change Purse, developed in 2019. By imprinting the word climate on the uncut side of a red plastic change purse, Terry creates an indelible pun that states straight out that climate, just like about everything else, is all about the almighty dollar. Not much will actually change with what many feel is our most important global issue unless all nations and all peoples take major efforts to improve the health of our planet. At this point, the race against time seems to have a finish line that moves closer and closer to the current day as our oceans warm, our land burns, and the weather becomes more and more volatile. Maria Karametou offers the triptych Stuff from 2019, the most conceptual work in the exhibition. Stuff consists of three identically sized and framed panels emblazoned with the word Stuff, all in caps, across the middle of the picture plane. There are a few ways to go here. One can imagine an uninspired genius who feels they only need to suggest the representation of various objects and the rest is left up to the viewer. Or, this is an indication that there is less than an ideal amount of art appreciators who fully understand all that contemporary art has to offer. In any case, stuff is how we sometimes think, as we simplify what we can in order to focus on more pressing issues while ignoring culture's gifts. China Mark stitches her wild and witty fabric collages that point to the outer edges of comedic tastes. With the works Clown Pants and Happy Rabbit, created in 2014, Marks uncovers with bold, contrasting, and revealing imagery and text the extensiveness of human behavior that is not so nuanced, but oddly casual. What viewers may find most fascinating about the artist's three works is her unusual, albeit direct approach to humor, while her chosen media that usually implies hominess, Americana, and stability becomes more elusive in some ways and more telling in other ways. Sally Curcio's Hypochondriac, a self-portrait from 2017, where the artist herself is seen as the subject of the toy Operation game, sets up some very compelling thoughts. Here, the artist pokes fun at herself in a most direct way through parody and satire. Many of us know the game that was all the rage in the mid to late 1960s, and how difficult it was to remove objects from the patient's open spaces without triggering the buzzer. The message here is the elusiveness of feeling good, and how often we are reminded of the many ways our bodies can fail us with the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the lives we lead. Cynthia Consentino is the master of metaphor. Her work Little Girls, created in 2020, not only serves to project powerful multiple narratives, her art can at times be functional, as with her sculpture for this exhibition. A two-part work of art, Constantino adds a surreal twist to an already creepy representation by using one of the classic symbols of the genre, a human eye, to create a hypnotic pattern on the child's dress. The child's oversized head that carries a blank stare, and the second upside-down mini her between the legs of the bottom half, harkens back to a time when fairy tales and children's books had far more mind-altering meanings, as with Alice in Wonderland. Rock After Excalibur by Matthew Garrison literally and figuratively toys with our perception and memory. We have all seen those little plastic cocktail swords, which here have somehow become capable of penetrating stone. Excalibur, the magical sword used by King Arthur, seems to have been divided and conquered, as anyone can imagine the relative uselessness of a little plastic saber in battle. However, if they are strong enough to pierce rock, perhaps the magical powers can be passed along to an army of little weapons, if only they can be removed. There are a few ways the narrative can go here, which is the real fun of this thought-provoking work. The paintings of Don Do very often have a bold and blatant balance of dark and light humor. Most often his subjects, which are out-of-proportion figures cobbled together, are actually painted from collage studies comprised of bits and pieces of magazine photographs. And it is that distortion in scale between adjoining body parts that he does not change or correct that propels the humor in his narratives. For instance, in Her Breath and Armor of Broken Shell, created in 2017, we see at least three different individuals that comprise the subject. The ridiculously small size of the head with the beaming smile and the confident akimbo pose brings it all together in a potent moment of amusement. Rick Krieger's Shut the Fuck Up, Donnie, created in 2017, appropriates a scene from The Big Lebowski, adding one of the artist's more iconic heads, superimposing it over the face of the dude played by Jeff Bridges. By taking an already classic comedy and adding the new Martian-like head to the lead actor, adds to the goofiness of the scene. And for the few out there that never saw or heard of the cult classic Coen Brothers film, there is that element of awkwardness in the clarity and placement of the clay-like head, which does not mask the fact that the artist has manipulated the image in the name of humor. Ryan Turkowski reminds us, in a very funny way, that we are but a minuscule part of the universe, and like the aforementioned Maurizio Cattelan, whose 1999 masterpiece, La Nona Ora, The Ninth Hour, which depicts Pope John Paul II being bowled over by a fallen meteor, shows how tenuous the linkage is between belief and reality. So too does Turkowski's Interval from 2014, as a meteorite pounds an archaic leather baseball glove in what one assumes to be the middle of a game. Is this science intervening with sport, or is this some otherworldly power reminding us of our position in the grand scheme of things? Michel Burdine's two photographs will surely bring an instant smile. The Great Summer Escape, taken in 2013, is one for the ages as two toddlers find great joy in classic summertime fun. What is even more important here is the implied movement forward in the two figures, who have not a care in the world, as they move toward the viewer sloshing and splashing about in an inflatable pool. We can all agree that freedom to move about and experience the lone goal of pure joy, something that is of far less frequent occurrence as one grows older, is something we should never lose sight of. Robert Zott brings us a set of 12 tombstone photographs engraved as follows: See Dick swim, swim Dick swim, see Dick drown, drown Dick drown. Titled Bon Voyage, Zott's phrasing as narrative is humorous, while his subject, the gravesite, may bring on tension or anxiety in some viewers, effects that are enhanced by his use of black and white film. As a parody of the mid-20th century Dick and Jane book series, Zott links the inevitability of death to one of the oldest and greatest traditions in human culture, storytelling, all while reminding us how intertwined fear and laughter actually is in the complexity of human emotions. Rina Goldfield's two paintings precisely imitate the look of a computer-generated collage. The abruptly cut edges, the inconsistent light sources, the acid colors, and the lack of atmosphere all tell the viewer they are looking at the output of a computer program. Created with oil paint on canvas, Goldfield's style looks something like photorealism based on the computer screen as study. Her imagery, the Cookie Monster, and a pink worm with simple flat eyes, in a grass field that align to make a goofy laughing face, make reference to humor, but in a very creepy way. There is a lot of familiarity here, but that knowing does not take away from the disorienting effect of the work. Galileo from the Great American Series, a work created in 2011 by Bill Gusky, is an acrylic on-canvas painting that depicts in blue and white a big-eyed, al-cap, hillbilly version of the great astronomer, physicist, and engineer Galileo. Using some of the features from Lil Abner, 1909 to 1979 comic strips, Gusky creates a one-legged mutant who joyously struts his stuff while holding a telescope and pointing to the sky. It is unclear that this is anything beyond an automatic abstraction born of the unconscious or a well-planned abstraction. However, the final result is humorous and even a bit campy. Whatever the desired effect, we see something here that immediately draws our attention and spurs our curiosity. Lucey White addresses two very pronounced socio-political issues of the current day: gun violence and gender inequality. Using band-aids to make her paintings, White is immediately adding the concept of hurt or harm to her iconography. The inference of gun culture is plain to see with the all-too-familiar silhouettes that form the Sex Pistols series of 2005. On the other hand, with I Hate You Brief Extra Large from 2006, we have indications here of the negative way in which women are scrutinized by size, style, or modesty, while Peace Panty, painted in 2006, has a more radical feel, like something from 1967 when the Summer of Love meets the Vietnam War protests. Isak Applin takes a rather quiet, deadpan view of the world through passionate moments that are striking and odd. With Quarry from 2016, we see what looks to be the end of a well-planned murder scene in what would normally be a very romantic setting. By removing any lead-up to the event, or any particular details like an obvious scream or strong facial expressions, Applin turns this scene into a comical view of something quite disturbing. In the end, it is the poisonous snake in the water below that will more than likely have the final say. Hans van Meuwen's Epimenides from 2014, which I have now learned refers to the liar paradox, is comprised of a fallen, overtly flattened man made with gigantic feet and a fully extended Pinocchio-lying nose. This prone cretin, who lies about who the liars are, which in turn makes him a liar, forms a funny vacuum of thought that can make one quite dizzy. Despite my attempt to understand the origin of this work, I still see this piece as humorous, since the squash body, contrasted by the very oversized clown shoe-like proportions of the subject's feet, make me smile. Nik More's use of the lyrics from Rule Britannia, which runs along the border of his mixed media collage titled If I Ruled the World, adds an odd sort of patriotism to the work. Hailing from London, one aspect of More's local politics is represented by a pro-Brexit dartboard, which has had no hits and a few misses by USA-made darts. Additionally, the subject's stiff wood shirt is breached by the always voracious Woody Woodpecker, who seems to have reached notoriety across the pond. Overall, the combination of light subject matter and the references of the hangman's noose and the guillotine in the comic book pages that cover part of the background add to the absurdity of the narrative. Kirk Nachman offers a number of short animated films that use snippets from old-time radio shows for the sound. For instance, in Natura Historia, created in 2019, Nachman employs portions of the radio show The Whistler from 1942 to 1955 and Richard Diamond, Private Detective from 1949 to 1960 for the audio. The drama imposed by the audio, which is classic and heavy-handed, and the visuals created by the artist make for a mesmerizing combination of mysterious scenes. In addition, the cyclorama paintings used for the backgrounds in Natura Historia, which are altered photographs taken from the animal exhibits at the Museum of Natural History in New York City, gives the whole thing its majestic feel, greatly enriching the whole experience.
Personality. I'm a sucker for exciting literature. Mysteries, westerns, spicy stories, anything.
Know any shaggy dog stories? I could use a laugh.
I walked out on a great theatrical career to come out to the West Coast and...
Not a car in sight for miles.
Mr. Diamond. Mr. Diamond.
buddy. Me? Well, what you want? Hey, stick around, pal. After this lecture, we put on a special show in the rear tent for men only. 25 cents extra.
Oh, boy. For men only, huh? What kind of a show is it, Bud?
If you're a television watcher, you've probably figured the United States Cavalry must have spent most of its time shooting up Indians and rescuing wagon trains. Well, as a matter of record, that's almost right. This is Myron J. Bennett with a little-known item of American military history.
Hey, that bunch of Columbine there, growing right in a row. Jim Corbett ain't the luckiest man in the world, is he?
No, he sure isn't, Chester. Come on, let's get out of here.
The story of a strange and desperate crime. A crime so carefully planned it was practically foolproof.
Hey, are you still planning to fence this stuff with Jake? Yeah, right after we pull the job. I'm not taking any chances. They've only got 2 bars in each window. If we could get 1 bar out, I might be able to squeeze through. I suppose you're going to shrink yourself down and crawl between the bars. Well, what's wrong with using a hacksaw? I already told you it takes too long.